Welcome to the Water People podcast. Today, we're in conversation with one of the forgotten elders of surf culture, Mary Setterholm, who helped found WISA, the Women's International Surfing Association, in 1975, at age 20. The graduate of Harvard Divinity School has gone on to teach hundreds of women and at-risk youth the art of riding waves. But just a year after founding WISA, at the top of her game at age 21, she fled the sport and the coast for a different life. She shares with us the painful story of why she left and how she found her way back to the ocean. This episode is presented in partnership with Who Gives a Crap. If nothing else, I feel like 2020 has taught us how much we collectively value our health, our community, and toilet paper.
Yes, that's right, Lauren. What about the time when we were with our little guy in the pool and a swimming lesson went horribly wrong and I was holding him as he let out a big brown cloud into the pool? And at that point, we really realised how unprepared we were. And we had zero cleaning supplies, toilet paper, napkins, tissues, anything at all. We had nothing. Basically just super parenting rookies. And we'd also just rocked up to the swimming lesson covered in sand, zinc, and basically pretty feral compared to all the other parents. And so since that day, we have always stored a spare roll of Who Gives a Crap in our car or bags or anywhere basically, so that we're ready for anything our toddler's going to throw at us.
We support Who Gives a Crap because they're committed to using their business for good. No plastic packaging, TP made from recycled textbooks, and they donate half of their profits to help improve sanitation and build toilets for the 2 billion living without one. They know that making a difference begins with small changes that can have big impact. You can make a difference with your TP budget too by going to whogivesacrap.org right now and use the coupon code WATERPEOPLE to get $10 off your first subscription. That's $10 off your first subscription purchase at whogivesacrap.org with coupon code WATERPEOPLE. Our podcast comes to you from the coastal land and waters of both the Bundjalung and Gubbi Gubbi nations. We'd like to acknowledge these traditional custodians and pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging. We'd also like to extend that respect to all First Nations people this podcast ripples out toward. In 2 seasons now of the Water People podcast, this has to be one of my very favorite episodes. Mary Setterholm's story is one of the most tragic, but also triumphant that I've heard in our culture. About a year ago now, I was writing my book on the rise of female surfing and trying to incorporate as much historical information and reference points and stories as possible to create a real anchor for women surfing across space, time, and across culture. There's stories in there about ancient Hawaiian goddesses and princesses who helped to preserve the culture and the art of surfing. But there was always one person who really kind of haunted me, actually. I thought about her and her story all the time. During my research, in particular, the hours I spent with Matt Warshaw's Encyclopedia of Surfing, I studied his entry on WISA, the Women's International Surfing Association, at length. It was founded in 1975 by pro surfers Jericho Poplar and Mary Setterholm, our guest today, and they founded WISA to bolster women's competitive surfing. Warshaw's passage opens with this quote from Mary. It says, "Surfing does not demand aggressive strength," Setterholm noted when she introduced the Women's International Surfing Association, or WISA. And I quote, "Waves treat everyone equally. Men and women are on the same terms as far as nature is concerned." And then a little bit further down in Warshaw's passage, there's a note about how Mary was sexually assaulted by fellow surfers at a party and that she moved to New York and Mary Lou Drummy took over the helm of WISA. But there was nothing more about Mary, and I hadn't been able to find anything else about her in any magazine and any other historical book. And I just couldn't stop thinking about where she was, if she was still surfing, and actually if she was even still alive. I don't know why I hadn't done this before, but I did some digging and eventually found an email to get in touch with her. And I couldn't be more grateful for Mary's generosity in sharing her quite tumultuous, but incredibly brave surfing life with us. Connecting with her really feels like an important link in my own surfing life, and an important one for our culture's inclusive version of our history. She's someone who directly paved the way for someone like myself to make a career out of surfing and riding.
Wow, Lauren, it's really amazing to hear you talk about her and the experience you had of writing your book and uncovering stories in women's surfing. And it really feels as though Mary's story in particular is really at the center of your interest and your hard work when it comes to documenting women's surfing stories. You know, the fact that she was of such an ability in her youth and could win contests on a national scale, was obviously bright, very intelligent, full of energy, and just going for it, just a great young surfer. And then all of those ups and downs in her surfing life since, it really is an example of how for years now we've been saying that the best stories in surfing are with the women, because there's so many that are untold. And then there's so many extra layers of courage, of resilience, of ability to overcome compared to those of the men that we've celebrated in our timeline. You know, we've celebrated lots of blokes who have really pioneered certain waves and the ability to ride them. But beyond that, you know, the challenges are quite small when you compare them to all the other layers that lots of women through the decades would have had to overcome just to be able to get a wave in those lineups. And that's a big deal. You know, that's a really big deal. We're wanting to do better now. We're uncovering some of the warts and all stories of culture and society, and surfing is a part of that. And so this is one of those stories. And what an amazing woman. Just, you know, what an honour to sit and talk story with her and feel how much energy she still has too. It's just all time. So yeah, very privileged to have that sit down.
How was it for you to hear her firsthand experience about some of the misogyny or, you know, deep gender bias that really was unextractable from the early days of surf culture? How was that for you?
Well, it's not unfamiliar. You know, growing up as a young bloke in Australia in the 90s and seeing the debauchery and the imbalances in culture at that point, all culture, not just surfing, but every subculture in Australia was feeling very out of whack and was feeling very macho and demeaning towards women, and just so little emotional intelligence on behalf of the blokes, like just not really receiving an education from our uncles and our dads and our teachers at school on how to navigate the passions and the urges and the sexual desires and the emotions and the language of just relating to each other. So I'm shocked, and it sucks, but I'm not surprised that there's stories like Mary's in the surfing timeline, because I saw a lot of that as a kid.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely wasn't surprising for me, but what was surprising is that I haven't really heard stories from that particular point in time, specific stories of women who felt comfortable enough, felt like there were a place in their lives where they could be brave enough to speak out about the rampantness in our culture of sexual assault in particular. I mean, you know, sure, bias and discrimination to start, but actual assault and how common it was as a young traveling surfer to really have to have your guard up all the time.
This is why we're doing this. You know, these conversations are a real attempt for us, you and I, to get away from the escapist media paradigm that surfing has had for decades, where we just want to pick up a magazine so we can escape from our daily grind. We just want to watch a surf movie so you can dork out and think only about riding waves and the boards you ride or the places you can go. So all of our media is, it's, you know, it's just
and we do that too.
What it is. Yeah,
and
we do
love
that too. Exactly. But there's also something so valuable and amazing and incredible stories and entertaining to being real. with each other and actually digging up the dirt within our stories and sharing them and learning from them and moving on and doing better next time. You see things like that, even with those snippets of like that documentary that was done a few years ago, Sea of Darkness, attempting to uncover the dirty, drug-running, sort of gangster-style antics of people who popularized, surf resorts and surf charters in Indonesia. And that was an amazing story, and lots of people got a kick out of it because it was quite an honest portrayal of what was going on. So I think there's a bit more of that happening these days, but certainly when we were little gromlets, everything was just escapist.
Yeah.
So I like that we can talk about this and share this with you, a listener out there, in terms of our motivation for doing these sort of things. And it's great to touch on some of the esoteric aspects of surfing and the artful sides and whatnot, culture and everything. But it's also really essential to dig in and just listen, actually, to someone like Mary and hear what she has to say, what she's learnt, and how she's turned so much trauma and challenge into triumph and sharing and broadening and opening up her world to others, for others to enjoy surfing as well. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, on that note, just a little warning if you're listening with children, or if you might be stirred emotionally by a story about sexual assault, you might want to skip through the first section of this episode where Mary recounts one of the experiences that really turned her away from surfing and surf culture for a good period in her life. I just wanted to add that if you're listening right now and you're thinking, this topic doesn't really relate to me, or I can't relate to it, I really want to encourage you to listen. Global estimates published by the World Health Organization indicate that about 1 in 3, or 35% of all women worldwide, have experienced either physical and or sexual intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual violence in their lifetime. And that's just a statistical way of saying that all of us know or will know someone for whom this is a reality. And this is a great opportunity to just listen to how these kind of experiences can shape us and shape the people that we love throughout their lifetime. This is also the final episode of season 2 of the Water People podcast. We're going to have a little break for a couple months and start making our list for our dream guests for season 3. If you have any suggestions about who you'd love to hear from on the podcast, who you'd love to share stories with, please write to us, send us a DM, and let us know who you think we should have on for season 3. And we wanted to share with you the winner of our season-long giveaway. His name is Dorf. He reviewed the podcast and also let us know about the 100-kilometer swim, that's about 62 miles, that he's currently undertaking along the east coast of Australia to raise funds for Camp Breakaway, which provides respite care for differently abled folk and their carers. We're so inspired by Dorf's larrikin approach to living by his motto and mantra of live to give. Thanks for your joyous spirit of generosity, Dorf. A new custom Gary McNeil surfboard is all yours to play with when you get home. And we'll also be choosing a handful of other winners to take home some cozy pairs of Sanuk footwear, so check your DMs. We'll be in touch soon.
Can I ask, I thought DMs has always meant deep and meaningfuls. What is actually a DM?
That's such a nicer...
Tell me, Lauren.
acronym. A direct message.
Oh, see, I was going to say digital message.
Oh, yeah, that too. Yeah.
All right, well, thanks for the education.
I love that about you. It's so sweet. If you're listening and you dig what we're up to, please consider sharing an episode with a friend or leaving us a review. It really helps us keep the stoke alive, to keep podcasting. And we hope you enjoy this kind of untold story from our surfing canon. We begin the podcast with the same question for each guest, and that's about a time or experience after which you were never the same. Mary, do you have a time like that you'd be willing to share with us today?
I have a few, and I have a bouquet. So I'll give you a couple and you choose, if you don't mind. One, probably a triple hold down, no more. It was probably one of the biggest waves I've ever seen. It was in Makaha, massive day, and there are only 5 of us out. And how I survived that wave, or the series of waves, is something that changed me forever, because it was life and death. I mean, we were hosed in like we were ants on a sidewalk.
Who were you surfing with? And was it a big winter swell?
Yeah. And like, again, it was Makaha. The one person I remember who was out there was Ivan Trent, Buzzy Trent's son. And he was out there. And that opened the door for me to meet his dad, Buzzy Trent, because he told his dad all about it. And then his dad asked me to come over and talk to him. And apparently he was a recluse at the time, wasn't seeing anybody, but oh boy, he wanted to tell me all about big waves. It was a big deal. And then, of course, there is surfing big waves, and the whole notion of gender equipping or disequipping was shattered. You know, some of us have awakenings that we could not script. We could not say, well, I need this awareness. And then you go to the great mountain and you look for it. No, sometimes it just hits you like a Mack truck, and you didn't even know you were in the street. You know, it's like that. And then, of course, there's the tragic gang rape that we didn't call it that at the time. It was called a train. That's what they called it. And that's what's pretty much was part of the major impetus for me to push. It was non-negotiable after that to push for WISA. I didn't have the name at the time, but the direction was real. So
what was the connection? I mean, I'm really interested in that moment. I don't think you need to talk us through the detail of the experience, but if you can set up the flow of events and how something so traumatic and horrific encouraged you to contribute more to a culture that had treated you so badly. I'd love if you could just sort of whisk us into the reality of,
Sure. Context is everything. Remember, this was in 1973. At the time, you know, women's liberation was just raging. You had Billie Jean King, you had Chrissy Everett, who was just smashing it. You had us, you know, banging on doors and screaming, you know. So there was that climate.
Screaming what and screaming to whom?
We were screaming. We thought we had to ask for permission for anything. And we were trying to say, we don't need your permission. I think we missed the point that we didn't even have to say that much. We had to just go out and do it. And I figured that out. Actually with Jericho. It kind of took us aback when we went to different places and knocked on doors. And we didn't tell the surf industry or anybody up in surfing that we were going to go get a permit, let's say at San Onofre or at Malibu. They opened the door. They said, oh, yeah, sure, coming in. That'd be great. A women's contest, fabulous. And we were thought, oh, my God, we know the guys would say, no way. You have to wait for us. We have to do all the work, you know what I mean, which we would actually do. And I remember leaving the park and rec, at San Onofre and going, we just got it. We just got permission to have something at San. What the hell? You know what I mean? That was a big awakening for us, that this facade of permission. So it was really clear to me that we had to have an exclusive, a woman-only format. Because if we built the infrastructure entirely, we were only asking ourselves for permission to go as far as they wanted to go. And so that is the idea. That was like, we were in the middle of shouting. We were having our own epiphanies. And then trying to wrestle with the insecurities that came with it, which were quite significant. But the gang rape or the train, that was Huntington Beach, a Lake Street party, just like any other party.
A surf party. Yeah. Summer, let's go. Let's have a party. And I worked in a surf shop. And,
word would get out among and between the surf shops, a party over here, party over there, you know what I mean? And so a bunch of us got ready. We migrated over to this party. It was nothing special. And I saw some guy I recognized from the lineup. I always thought he was cute. And I'm thinking, oh, maybe I'll hang with him. Maybe I'll make out. I mean, it was nothing. I mean, this is classic teenage behavior. I'm like 18 and I'm crazy. And, but I'm in the kitchen with him and he wants to fix me a drink and his buddies go, yeah, we'll fix your drink. What do you want? And I'm like, God, all of you have to be in on this, and I just said vodka, Harvey Wallbanger, so they fixed me this Harvey, and I sat on this guy's lap and I started to drink it. And I was wondering why they were all watching me, but I didn't think anything of it. All those details come back. But then I'm in a bedroom. I didn't want to go in a bedroom, but I'm in a back room. And I'm on the bed with this guy and I don't really want to be there. And I don't know why I'm trying to move and think my limbs aren't working, but I'm trying. And then I heard noise on the floor next to me and I looked. I have to say all this. I looked on the floor next to the bed, between the window and the bed. There was like a 2-foot space. And there was a guy just humping this girl who was probably around my age. And he was merciless. And she was out cold and she was fighting for consciousness. She was just like moving her head, but she couldn't open her eyes and she was moaning. And he had full faculties, was looking up at me, goes, I'm next. You shouldn't have had that. I'm next. And I remember the terror that went through me, like, oh my God, what is this? And next thing I know, all these guys come in the room. And I remember trying to curl up in a fetal position, but I started to black out and I was yanked out of it and everything started happening. But the next thing I kept hearing, I'm next. And the next thing that I clearly remember, besides a lot of pain, was nobody in the room and hearing noise outside the door. It's dark. And I have no clothes on and I had clothes on and I'm trying to find anything to put on. And I found my denim jacket, but I found pants that weren't mine. I mean, it was just didn't matter. I had to get out of there. And I thought I put things on right. And I walked down the hallway, stumbled down the hallway away from the crowd. I don't remember getting out the door, but the next thing I remember, I'm on the lawn. Somebody's picking me up. And I had been throwing up. And I didn't have a top on. I mean, I had my denim jacket on, but I didn't have anything underneath it. And so I could feel with the wind, everything. And they picked me up and took me to a car and put me in the back. You have a back seat and you have the foot section. Well, I'm not a big lady. I certainly wasn't a big girl then either. And they dropped me right there where feet would normally be. The cars were bigger then, they had more foot room. So I was stuck there and they drove me to an apartment. I remember we were going upstairs. And next thing I know, I came to in a bathtub, no clothes on again. And there's a bunch of guys in the bathroom. And I really should have been taken to a hospital. But I then started yelling, like, get me out of here, and I don't remember how I got into a bed at that point. I do remember then, I don't know if anything more happened to me. I remember one notorious surfer came in there, not in the bathroom, but in the apartment with his girlfriend. He was notorious. He was a hellraiser. He came in all angry with his girlfriend who was crying. And I remember that. I remember thinking, yeah, the party's over, you asshole. because he was always a life of the party. And here he was all bent out of shape. You know what I mean? Kind of like in withdrawal, really. And his girlfriend, who's usually, oh, let's go. And she was crying. So here's the hangover, right? And then they left. And now I was all alone. And this is really important. I wanted to die. I did not know how to stay alive to the end of the day. I was like, it's got to end. I must die. And my idea was to go to Pacific Coast Highway and step in front of a truck. I had every intention of doing it, but I couldn't get out of bed. I was too beat up. I was too sick. And so then I prayed, which was a rare thing for me to do. At that point, I mocked God in my prayer, fully mocked God. I said, so you that see everything, watch this. It's over today. And then I imagined a cliff, and I thought I would practice my will jumping over a cliff. And I sat there and I was like, yeah, we're going to jump. Let's jump. And I let go. I was like, I'm dying. And then something seized me. So, like a burning force, some kind of heat came over my body. It was just, and a voice with it that said, I'm here. I'm here. And I knew it was God. I knew it was an angel. I knew I was wrong. I knew there was something dramatic happening in life. I knew something wanted me to live. I knew I could calm down, whatever that was, I was able actually after that to get up. And I walked outside. Everything looked new. The day looked different. Everything smelled different, looked different. I was physically still hurting and hungover, but there was something inside. If I hadn't gotten that tap or whatever it was, it would have been over. So that was it. I made my way home, and I had the kind of home life where, if I was gone, nobody was looking for me. I don't know what your home life was like, but, I love my mother. We are very good friends. At the time, the context is everything. She was a very high functioning, very successful lawyer and an alcoholic. So high functioning alcoholic. And she's been sober now for about 30 years. It's pretty impressive. But she was unable to be present. And I don't blame her. I don't blame her at all. That's just, what these diseases do to you. They rob you of a capacity for presence with your fellows. So, yeah, I learned a lot from that about the dynamic of groups of men. I knew that man on the floor was a ringleader. I knew that the guy that brought me to the room was not. I know that usually the one who's the mouthpiece is not the main one. There's somebody dark behind him who's egging him on. I have taken time to study this sort of thing, there's someone else telling somebody to pull the trigger. So I just knew, and it pretty much ruled out any surfer. I was never going to date a surfer. Are you kidding? There was no way. No.
Mary, I'm so sorry that you had to experience all of that, and but I'm grateful that you are so generously sharing the experience, because think it is indicative of the shadows of, our culture at large, but also surf culture in particular. And I think you were starting to speak to that by saying you would never date a surfer.
Well, I don't necessarily, that was my 18-year-old self that had every reason to, want to be safe. But I couldn't leave my love of surfing, right? So how do you manage all this and still have a love, alive? And so it was very tricky navigation going forward. And it only lasted so long. I didn't know, first of all, we didn't have language. We didn't know that we didn't have date rape. We didn't have, we didn't have gang rape. It was trained.
Well, not that it wasn't happening, but the popular understanding, the cultural understanding to put a name to it hadn't yet been created.
No. Actually, it had been created finally. About that time, someone coined the term date rape in the early 70s, but it didn't take, you know what I mean? It just didn't take. I've looked it up. It wasn't for like another maybe 10, 15 years before someone wrote a book and said, I never called it rape. And I read that. And that's when I started drinking heavily, because I didn't want to feel or think or go there. And I thought alcohol would stop it, which was just so wrong. I mean, there's nothing that a drink won't make worse, right? So I'm like, that didn't work. I got help for that. So,
Mary, at that time, was this something that you could turn to other girlfriends or women within the surfing subculture at that time and have any conversation about this?
No. How you spoke to each other was you would say, stay away from this guy. We would run interference that way. That's what we would do. And also, you did what you could not to get taken to a back room. That was just.
Which is insane that was a woman's responsibility, was to try to evade the
predators.
Yeah, predators. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
The wild thing for me when I hear all this too is also that, those hard drinking, sort of rebellious men of that period
that we idolize are
all iconic characters, and then all of that period and those sort of antics are celebrated.
That's why I wouldn't go. I mean, Wisa got inducted into the Hall of Fame in Huntington, and I did not go.
Yeah.
I couldn't go.
Understandable.
I could not go. And I didn't want to tell him why. I mean, I told Shannon Aikman why. And it kind of got shrugged. And I understand why she did that, because she really wanted us to be recognized. But I wasn't ready. I'm ready now. I wasn't ready then. I have a lot of stories about some of these names that you see, carved in there that are just, and I'm like, oh, So, yeah.
I just wanted to make clear that some of the men who are perpetuating this violence, these are, well, you can answer whether they are or not, but these are people maybe that we would have heard of. They're not random outside.
Yes, absolutely. 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 I rode for Walden Surfboards, and there was one team member. I showed up in Huntington one morning to get my board out of the flop pad, this apartment. And he sees me. There clearly was an orgy that night because bodies were all over the place. I stepped over a few people to go to a closet to get my board, and I'm leaving, and he goes, "Where are you going?" I go, "I'm surfing." He goes, "No, wait a minute." He jumps up and he gets on the balcony with me. He goes, "We're supposed to go to Malibu." I go, "We are?" He goes, "Yeah, we have a team session in Malibu." So he takes me all the way out to Malibu. This is from Huntington Beach. While we're there, he makes some moves on me in his van, and I fought him like hell and didn't let him get what he wanted. And he then berated me to no end on the way back. He He said, well, go surf. You know what I mean? It was kind of like, and then he took off somewhere. He didn't even surf. And then he showed up to pick me up. It was so random, the whole thing. And he told me I was a lesbian, all this stuff, and he was going to spread the word and all this. I mean, it was just, he was brutal. But what happens, the comeuppance was, this is just before the U.S. contest, before I won. And 2 weeks before, I found my dad, who was a drug dealer. He dealt dope, not LSD or anything like that. So I found him. I didn't grow up with him, but I found him because he gave dope to my high school friends, and that was the connection. They told me where he was. They couldn't believe I never knew him. And well, this guy, I'm at the party the night before the U.S. contest that the city put on. He comes up to me and I'm like, oh my God, here we go. And I'm like, just going, you know, what are you going to say to me now? He gets on his knees. He goes, Mary, I have to say, look, I'm really sorry for what happened at Malibu. I'm really sorry. And I'm scared now because I'm like, oh my God, he knows that he was an asshole, right? I'm not trying to make him feel better. And then it comes out of his mouth. He goes, I found out that Eldon is your dad. And I don't want any trouble with Eldon. That was it.
Wow.
You know, he got stuff from my dad, you know, I never called him Dad, he was Eldon. So
but there's nothing authentic about that apology, is there? Him saying that. No. That's not coming from the right place at all.
As a matter of fact, I got more waves because of him. I'd be out there in the water and some guys would go, hey, no, don't drop in her. That's Eldon's daughter. They're like, oh my God, you know. That was not a very good bridge, you know, to have. That kind of messed me up even more. Not because I didn't want dope. I was not, you know, I wasn't a tweaker. I just could not see how that high could be superior, even close to equal a wave. I'm like, no, don't even try to get those two things confused or linked. Don't even do that to me.
That makes me really curious there, Mary, to perhaps dive into that statement there, that a wave meant so much to you at that point in time.
Yes.
So that there was so much baggage and so much complication around the surfing experience, but that still at the center of it, that just catching a wave still meant that much to you. Can you speak to that at all?
Oh my gosh, because now it's kind of like the square around me is getting chipped away, you know. Of course, what drew me to surfing was just the wave. It was my teacher. It was great, the best teacher. Every wave was a transcendent experience. Even today, when I hear someone say, you know, degrade a surf day, they go, oh, the waves are shitty. I just cringe inside. I just go, oh my gosh, the sea is always giving you what she has. You know, it's just wrong. And I'm starting to have a thought in the back of my mind, well, you deserve to have a bad day then. That's just, you know, if you don't see every day as sacred out in the sea, then I'm sorry, I don't know what to do for you.
So at that point, Mary, when all that was happening, just to take us back to that period in time, were you able, as a young woman there, experiencing all of those low lows and high moments in the ocean, were you able to understand the value that surfing had for you then? Were you purposefully going to the beach and going, I really need to go for a surf and wash this out of me? Was there an understanding like that for you at the time?
Well, we didn't. No. I just knew I had to get to the sea. I would get up before dawn, you know, as we do. But I lived in Corona del Mar, which is a little pocket neighborhood inside of Newport Beach. It's right in the harbor. And I would take off with my bike and board to try to be the first one out at Huntington Pier. I'd ride my bike 10 miles with my board because I had to be first. I had to be out there. You know, it was like, didn't matter what the waves were, did not matter what the surf was. I had to be out there. And that's how it was when I first learned to surf. And I'd ride my bike with my board. I had an 8.0 at the time, and I was like not even 5 foot tall. I was like 85 pounds. And I'd ride my bike down Olympic Boulevard to Bay Street. And I didn't understand a left or a right. I didn't understand any of it. I just knew a wave was coming, and if I could catch it, I would. And I counted waves. That's what I did. I didn't understand maneuvers. I didn't understand any of that. I just wanted to feel a wave push me like it did on my rafts. You know, I had the air mattresses, and I used to stand on those things and do 360s and not know that they were 360s. I was upset that it wasn't going straight. You know what I mean? I'm a kid, and I'm doing all these sides of the thing. I'm like, why won't it stay straight? I'm just doing, you know, side, backwards, everything. And when I got on a board, I popped up to my first wave and stood there going, oh, this is it. I mean, I surfed immediately because I was mastering it on this crazy mat that just wouldn't hold still and was sinking under my feet and was bouncing and going on. I had no idea that actually was getting me ready to tear it up. I had no clue. I didn't live in the surf culture. My brother, he surfed, but he didn't really surf. He didn't talk about it. A friend might drag him to the beach and he tried, but we lived in West LA. We weren't in the local band, you know, at all. So I wasn't privy to any surf speak or anything, but something about waves, because I lost trust in authority figures because of other trauma that happened. But the wave, it taught me, you know, if you're not ready, kabam. But I always felt the sea was like dancing and skipping and joyful. I just felt something from the sea.
I think we can all relate to that across time and space.
Yeah. Yeah. So I couldn't lose that. I did, though. I did. You know, I did and I didn't, you know. I didn't know how to compartmentalize, you know, who does, right?
Who does?
Yeah.
So Mary, I keep saying this, but I'm just so grateful to be able to connect with you, because in researching for the book I put together, I encountered your name only in one place, and that's in the Encyclopedia of Surfing. And I'd like to read the entry that your name is first included in. It's under the heading of WISA, which you helped to found.
Okay.
And this is it. WISA, First All Women's Competitive Surfing Association, based in Huntington Beach, California, founded on March 8th, which is International Women's Day, 1975, by pro surfers Jericho Poplar and Mary Setterholm, in part to help address the sport's gender inequities. This is a quote. "Surfing does not demand aggressive strength," Setterholm wrote when she introduced the Women's International Surfing Association. "Waves treat everyone equally. Men and women are on the same terms as far as nature is concerned." And then that article goes on to mention later in the Encyclopedia of Surfing entry, there was a sentence that has captured my imagination and kind of haunted me for many years. The later sentence was, "After being sexually assaulted by a group of surfers at a party, WISA president Setterholm moved to New York in 1976, and longtime California surfer Mary Lou Drummy became the organization's second and final president, assisted throughout by Poplar." It was just one sentence.
I had no idea. I see. I haven't even looked at that stuff.
Yeah. But I could just never understand why I'd never read anything more of your personal story, especially since you were such an integral figure in the foundation of women's professional surfing. And the only other personal tidbit about you that I could find was that you were sexually assaulted. And I was always really disturbed by the fact that there wasn't even a quote from you about that. And that was what I found quite haunting. And I just always wondered, where did you go after that event?
Yeah, I did mention it to on the phone to Kevin Cody when he wanted it. He just asked me this question. I didn't know he was going to write a story, had no clue. But he goes, "Why'd you leave?" And I said, "Look, if you were gang raped by 5 guys, you'd get on a bus and get the hell out." And then I heard the clicking of a typewriter, and of a keyboard. I said, "Did you write that down?" I said, "Well, I'm writing some of it down." I just said, "Oh, well, you won't do it." Well, he did. And I hid in my apartment for like a week. I thought people would I just felt so dirty. I just felt, as much as something seized me and saved me, you know what I mean? I mean, really saved my life at that moment. I still had so much work to do. I had so much work to do as far as just slowing down to really assess it all and see the impact of it.
Well, how can you know? How can you know when you're a young woman what to do with the most intimate violation possible? I mean, how could
you can't. You can't. And that's the one thing, because I've, run groups now for women. Not now, I've taken a break from it, but for women who've been engaged in prostitution or, trafficked or sexually abused or whatever. And, the number one thing, it's not your fault. There's a lot more to it. It's very complex, complicated. And it's too convenient to forestall, work on it, and say, it's just my fault. End of it. And you can't do that. You can't do that. You got to work on it bit by bit, not all at once, but as you can. There needs to be, internal interrogation plus contextual examination. Like, what was the setting? And it's such a sensitive thing about blame. You just can't, it's too big. I want to point fingers and do all this. That's too easy. I just settle down and go, we just haven't figured out how to love one another. And we just can't see each other and say, that's a future mother. That is someone's daughter. We just lack that communal vision about our fellows when we're with each other. So I grieve that. If I'm going to grieve something, I wonder how I can help facilitate some thinking like that.
So you founded WISA, had won the US Surfing Championships, and then you got on a bus and you left. You walked away from it all.
I bought a Greyhound ticket and it was good for 2 weeks. And I thought, if I can't put something together in New York within a few days, I'm going to come back and no one knows I've left. It was 4 days to go across country. And I didn't tell anybody, didn't even tell my mother. I just left and left my board. I didn't know I probably should have been in a hospital, something. I was just coming undone. It was just too much. And crying all the time. So I had $8 in my pocket after I bought the ticket. And somehow, with a jar of peanut butter and a thing of crackers, I made it across the country. And a trunk full of some stuff. And my twin sister was in New York. And, I carried the trunk to her place on the east side, got to Port Authority, took a forever walk. And what's weird, she was also kind of in a bad way. She was also horribly depressed. We both were going through it at the same time without knowing it. So I ended up being her caretaker at that point. But in the meantime, I got 2 jobs. I got a job at Saks Fifth Avenue in the designer department. I don't know what they saw. I really, to this day, I find it amazing because I knew nothing about elegant clothes. But I think they liked the California glow, the sun as whatever. And also for this boutique in Greenwich Village. And I became a production manager for them because I knew how to sew. I was a professional seamstress at the same time. So I helped them knock off French originals. And yeah, it all came together, and I got this weird walk up in Greenwich Village, $125 a month. And all within not even 2 weeks. It was just bam. It just all lined up fast. So I knew I was going to stay. I just wanted stability. And I also felt so bad. I didn't know why I wasn't functioning. I couldn't understand my moods and, the sadness. I didn't understand. And I didn't want to be a burden to anybody. So I left and made a new life, which was not better, and, married someone who wasn't a surfer, but he was a law student, very gifted. And, but he was abusive. And I ended up in 2 shelters for battered women and 5 kids, and we lost one. And, yeah, that was a long time in breaking away from that. It was like a whole nother season of let me find freedom now. And actually, he was very jealous of my surfing. I went surfing once because there was a board left at my mom's house. So I got that board. And Haggerty's, and we moved back to California, and Haggerty's is going off. So I go out surfing there. And I was late in coming back, not that late, but I was late, I'll admit it. And he got so upset. We had a party that was scheduled the next day, and we were going to just get the place all gussied up for it. So what his solution was to teach me a lesson was to stab the board with a screwdriver, pour paint all of it, and then bust it in half with the garage door opener. So when I came home from dropping off the babysitter, there's my board, with a screwdriver stuck in it, destroyed. And the message was pretty clear. That could have been me. And I needed to be in the water, and I couldn't. And I finally got counseling, and I took a battery of tests. And it came out that the kind of trauma I went through with him and some before, I ranked the same tier as a POW, prisoner of war. And the PTSD, all of it was the same. And that kind of woke me up. And it steered the kind of treatment I got. And bit by bit, you got to avail yourself to these things. You got to develop skills when things trigger you. And I've accepted that that'll be the story the rest of my life. And that's just how it is. And these skills are great.
Mm. Did you have any relationship with water during those years in New York as you were becoming a mother, during your marriage?
No. I tried. It just wasn't safe. It wasn't safe at home. I couldn't. I had to be free of him before I could go back to the sea. We once tried to do something together. He was so happy because he goes, this is something that you're not good at. You've never done it before, so we could do this together. And it was windsurfing. Well, I was better at them right away. And, I got cracked ribs for that. So I don't want to get into all the drama. The instructor basically cut me loose and let me go out in the harbor and didn't let him go out in the harbor. I don't have my glasses on when I'm out in the water. I couldn't see that he wasn't let go. And so it mortified him. So when I came in, he just turned on me in the car. And I never windsurfed again. So, yeah.
You spoke about the comparison in terms of trauma levels to being a prisoner of war. And I feel like the war was trying to be an empowered woman with an experience of freedom in a deeply patriarchal culture. And that was a war that so many women were also suffering through in their intimate private lives, and there was no context to share about the trauma or the suffering.
Yeah. I mean, my scene was always just behind change. People woke up when people were waking up, and waking up sometimes a little too slow, but they're waking up after Nicole Brown Simpson was killed. After that happened, people suddenly realize, gee, maybe you are with one of these crazy guys, because people will go, he's so nice. But his family, his mother believed me. His mother knew. His mother was 100% behind me. And yeah, it takes time. When you get yourself in a jam, it's pretty hard to get out sometimes. And we do need each other. It was everything to me to come back to surfing. It was everything to me.
When did that happen?
That happened on June 15th, 1998.
And why? What was the impetus?
I was following a book called, what do you call it? Artist's Way. I wanted direction in my life. And I was working so hard, I could feel something tugging. And then I just prayed. I said, where do you want me? I'll go wherever. I thought it was going to be law school, because I always get told, go to law school. But instead, it was something said, surf instructor. It was, I just felt that, again, this heat come over my body, and just had a vision. And I wasn't able to do anything else after that. From that moment, from that spot by the beach, I went to every single park and rec. Do you need a surf instructor? Because I wanted to put this out of its misery. I didn't want any games. Because this is like a crush that was coming saying, will you come back now? I had to just disqualify this real fast. It was going to be either real or what. I didn't think I was welcome back, to be honest. And Manhattan Beach needed somebody. And so the 2 days later, I'm in there, and he's got a contract that says surf instructor on it. I thought, that is the strangest thing. Surf instructor, that doesn't belong on a contract. I mean, you're just surfing on a contract. I mean, this is just, I signed that thing so it wouldn't disappear. And the following week, I had all these kids that just had, garage sale boards. I mean, it was just a riot. And I never stopped laughing. I was the happiest kid. I got paid $10.34 an hour for only the time the class was in session, for an hour and a half. Of course, I was there a half hour early and a half hour later. And so you can do the math. By the end of the summer, I probably had about 100 students. I mean, I was teaching people one-on-one. People just, can you teach me? You're having so much fun. The phrase was, you're following your bliss, Joseph Campbell. Yeah. So it just, all of a sudden, then I had a surf school, and, I had over 100 employees at one point. It was just like crazy. My daughter runs it now. She's doing a fabulous job. I couldn't be more proud.
What's the name of the surf school?
Surf Academy. Pretty simple.
Sorry to interrupt the conversation, but we wanted to take a moment to recognize the generous folks who have supported us this season. The Water People podcast is brought to you by the fine folks at Sanuk. In 1997, founder Jeff Kelly started out with one simple goal: to make people smile, and to encourage them to pass it on. Sanuk has been advocating for a more playful and inclusive surfing culture for more than 2 decades, while crafting some of the comfiest footwear around. Thanks, Sanuk, for your support and for encouraging water people around the globe to protect their happy places. Learn more about Sanuk's partnership with the Surfrider Foundation at sanuk.com. Thanks also to Gary McNeil Concepts, who build cosmic surfboards for cosmic people. We love Gary McNeil's enthusiasm for building boards, and especially his passion for combining recycled and plant-based materials to craft boards that simultaneously prioritize durability, sustainability, and high performance. For custom orders and to check out the gallery of boards currently available, head to his website, garymcneilconcepts.com.au.
Do you mind if I tell another quick story about a big wave that taught me something?
Please.
Okay.
No, please.
Please.
Okay. There's 2. They're kind of close. My first time riding big waves, it was at Makaha. It was a pretty big day. It was at my first big wave riding experience. And I thought, there's no way I'm riding those waves. Those are too big for me.
What is big?
I would say it was probably triple overhead. I would say it was 10 to 12 and that's Hawaii. That was just thundering. Now, I had been surfing Makaha 6 to 8 and flying, and there were these big Samoan guys, just, you just had to stay away from them. When they took a wave, it was like, don't even think of dropping in, of sharing it. I mean, these big kahunas, right? So, I'm like totally impressed, like, whoa, we don't have anything like that in California, And so here comes this big day, and I think, okay, I'm just going to sit in the channel and watch this. This is so incredible. So I paddle out, not thinking I'm going to surf, and I sit in the channel and I'm watching and watching. And then something just comes over me. I'm like, oh my God. I paddle in. I paddle into the lineup, and I take off on this wave. And I could not believe I made the drop. I mean, first of all, how a big wave gets so dark before, you drop in. It's just black, it's like, holy shit. But I was on fire. I was on a 7.2, Russell, shaped by Bruce Jones. And I'm going down the face of the board, just going, and I'm just going, oh shit, no, no catching the rails. And I was like, oh my God, I'm totally on fire. Okay, another wave. And of course you had to watch the bull. The bull was something that was so magnificent, because you take off and you think, nice clean wall, but no, you had to fucking move it, because that bull was going to jack up, and you had to get in position because that thing was going to heave. So I'm on another wave, and I'm just going down the face, just loving it, loving the speed. And here comes one of these big Samoan guys paddling up the face, and he is like crying like he's a baby. He is so fucking scared. He's just, I'm just like, what? And I'm just so sure and secure. And in that flash of a moment, a reality hit me like this had nothing to do with age, size, gender. This had to do with what's in your spirit. What's in your spirit. And you don't know until it's happening. Then you get to nurture it once you do discover it. But damn, I realized that the door was opened. I guess I was a big wave rider. I refused to kind of say that about myself, you know, right? Because there weren't women big wave riders, but there it was. There was no denying it. But that guy, he was a tub of jelly when it got big. He was nothing when it got big. And when you know, and when it was smaller, he was the ruler. He was king. He was and of course I'm saluting. I'm totally saluting. You know, look at that. Look at that. So that was another awareness. That was like I had something to share with women, you know, and I'll never forget seeing it was known that it was a big day, and I saw Lynn Boyer like a couple days later, and I told her I was out because you were out. She wasn't riding big waves at the time. She wasn't. She was too afraid. I said, no, you got to know. You can do it. I'll never forget talking to her and just going, you got to just go. You're going to find out something. I remember this encounter, and she was like, oh my God, you know, they're all riding big waves. But it would have helped to have known that Marge Calhoun was surfing big stuff. We didn't know that. See, that's the thing. This is what you're doing, Lauren. You're through all the hard work you've done, you've really laid out the arc, you know, of engagement, of what women have done, the invisible stories, shedding light on them. And oh my gosh, I didn't know Linda Benson surfed Waimea. I was just jonesing for Waimea now. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going out. And yeah, I surfed Pipeline big. I surfed, you know, spitting. And oh my God, Booby Jones paddles up to me. There's a reason he was called Booby Jones. He paddles up to me out in the lineup, goes, what the fuck are you on?
What were you?
Just stoked, and terror. I mean, Pipeline, you got to commit to Pipeline. You can't just go, well, maybe I'll take it. There's no, you have to jack down that board, because if you don't get it down that first third of the wave, it's going to catch that rail and throw you straight out. And then you don't even know what you caught. That's the thing, is you got to take off, and then you're going, did I call it right? You know, it's just, but I just loved it. I loved it. And then another moment of shift, I like to call them shifts. Another big day at Macaw, just the guys had taught me that to keep an eye on this one rock way up, about probably half mile up. It was a point. They said, if you ever see a wave break there, let us know. We have to keep an eye on that rock, because that meant that a massive wave was coming. Okay, because if it hit that rock, oh, holy shit. So I'm paddling up this wave. You know how you paddle up a massive, giant wave. You can't see behind it because you're right there, and you get to the top, and then you're looking everywhere. And I look over at that rock, and I see something feather, and I'm like, oh my God, you know, and I paddle down the trail of the wave, come back up, and I look, and there it is. It's really splashing now, and I yell at everybody, Ian and everybody, the rock's breaking. And the guys are going, I didn't know what it meant, okay? And they all jerked. They went, oh my God. And we all paddle down this wave. We get to the top, and they look, and they see it, and they screamed in unison, ah! And I'm paddling, and I don't know what I'm paddling for. I have no idea. We're just all paddling like crazy. We get over this wave, and there it is. There it is. The biggest fucking wave I have ever seen, you know, being out. I'm like, and it's already cresting. I'm like, we're dead. You know, we're dead. This one big guy stands up on his board. This wave is breaking. Okay, it's just kaboom, and it's this massive whitewater wall coming. He stands up on his board and does this, oh, like cursing the gods, looking up in the air, going, oh, and then he dove. And I'm like, okay, and I just sucked up as much air as I could, let go of my leash, because we had shitty leash back then. They were like, you know, bungee cords that they just snapped like nothing. Swear to God, they were just bungee cords. And it would have been meaningless. So I dove down and I hugged the bottom. I swear to God, I found this coral rock and I'm just like hugging it, and I have my eyes open and I see underwater, I see the sand. I see it's all nice and tranquil where I am. The grass is nice. And I see it's black coming at me and it's churning up the sand. This wave found the bottom. It found the bottom. And I'm just like hanging onto this rock, and then bam, I got hit and I was getting ragdolled. And I knew I didn't have enough air to make the wrong call, I didn't know which ways. I was just going and I knew I didn't have, the guys had told me, you'd pick up things. So sometimes, you think you're going to the top and you swim and you hit the bottom, you got to know which way is up. You got to know which way is up. May not have enough air. So that's in my mind. I may not have enough air. I know I don't have enough air. So I sat there going, how do I know? Oh, and I'm getting thrashed and I'm wondering. And this thought came in my mind. This one sentence: dead or alive, you float.
Huh.
As I'm being thrashed around. And I realized the answer was in my body. And as I was being thrashed, I kind of honed in on my body and I felt it, get this, I felt it tugging that way, this way. And my mind was going, ups, this way. And I was tugging that way. And I'm like, all right, I got to swim that way. And so in my mind, I'm thinking I'm swimming sideways. Like I'm going to die now, but I'm doing this. This is how I die. And I broke to the surface. So sideways was up. What kind of life lesson is that? I was just like, and of course I get to the top, there's all this foam and here comes another one. We all got hosted, not one person, we all got hosted and we're looking for our boards. You know what I mean? We all just sat there. And that's when I met Buzzy Trent. That's when I got brought over to his house and he told me all about big wave riding. But yeah.
Wow.
I love Mary, that can have happened decades ago. And right there, you were back underwater telling that story.
We were with you.
Watching those clouds of turbulence and feeling that every moment of that underwater epiphany was happening for us too right now. It's so beautiful that surfing can live timelessly in us like that. It's obvious in you right now.
And it's so cool, as I rarely tell this story, but my daughter and my employees, when I ran my surf school, they said whenever I told that story, I didn't change a word. They said, you don't add to it. There's, they said they're used to people making a wave bigger, stretching it. No, it's the same. It doesn't have to be embellished. Geez. But the skill set that equipped me with is I have been in chaos. I mean, pretty gnarly chaos since. And I know to just kind of be still. I sure as hell don't know which way is up here. And I realized that I don't have to have the answer of which way is up. But up is somewhere. And I'm still, and I try to hone in on some guidance.
When you were talking about being underwater, you sort of spoke to the wisdom of the body and how even if our minds are in chaos, sometimes the wisdom of the body will deliver an answer. I just think that there's something beautiful there, especially in a world that kind of demeans the physical, demeans our bodies, and especially a culture that demeans women's bodies in so many ways. For you to find this deep wisdom underwater in your body, despite the fact that your mind was pulling you elsewhere, I think it's just a beautiful image.
Yeah. It's really true. I listen to my body. I don't think my brain has the answers. I think my body sometimes does. And there needs to be a conversation, don't you think?
Definitely. Definitely. It's our one certain home for this earth existence.
I'm so grateful to hear these stories, Mary. Lauren and I, since being together, we've been together 10 or so years, and it's just been so amazing for me. I've lived a life of being embedded in surf culture and industry, and hearing a lot of the same stories, which are fantastic stories a lot of the time, but a lot of the same stories quite a few times. And since Lauren and I have been, traveling together before we've had our little son, we would meet different women in the surfing timeline, and it's just getting more and more clear to me that the best, freshest perspectives and stories in surfing are with the women. And you sharing this right now, sharing those insights of riding those waves and having those underwater epiphanies is just so fucking cool. Like I'm just so pumped to have a new perspective of a time that we've just heard many of the same ones. So I just wanted to make a little pause there and just say thank you for having that enthusiasm and that ability to articulate your experiences in those lineups and in those situations, because that's really useful stuff for those of us who are growing into our surfing lives. It's really entertaining and it's just really inspiring. It's so great. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, you should look up Buzzy Trent, because he was a well-renowned, big wave rider, all that, just a legend. And when Ian came knocking on the door, Rail just goes, my dad wants to talk to her. And Rail goes, what? And I'm like, I don't know who Buzzy Trent is. I don't know who he is. I found out later. I found out from a lot of people after you talked to Buzzy Trent. He asked you to come over. I mean, the guy was a recluse at this time, a recluse. He was like a hermit. And so I'm led over to the house, and there he is. The room's kind of dark. And I sat on this low kit. He goes, you were out? My son told me you were out. I go, yeah. Well, what'd you think? And I told him it was pretty big. We lost all our board. Yeah, it was big. It was, about big waves. He started talking about big waves, and his famous saying was, and he said it, and I didn't know it was, I thought I was going to die. That's what you look, ever hear stories. It's always, I thought I was going to die. And he told me some great stories. And he said this, he goes, that Yahoo that's talking about gain a point, no one can ride a wave that big. We can't paddle fast enough. And his theory was you had to be able to paddle. These waves are coming. He explained me the science. The waves are coming in 50 miles an hour. Who can paddle that fast? That wave, you don't catch that wave. That catches you and pitches you. So you've got to get on a board and get some serious paddling speed. He goes, you got to practice paddling fast and get down, because that wave's just going to go flying underneath you and leave you. And then he predicted jet skis didn't exist then. He said he thought one of these like rubber raft things could slingshot. Someone's going to have to be slingshotted into a wave. They have to be just like they're skiing, and they'll be taken into a wave. That's the only way. You can't paddle fast enough.
Wow.
I'm like, dude, all right. But he forecast, toe-in.
Wow.
He did.
What I know of Buzzy Trent is a particular quote that's a bit misogynistic, and perhaps this is my own self-limiting sort of feminist approach to researching surf history, but he spoke publicly about how women probably didn't belong in big waves. Was that an experience you had of him, or not so much?
I did not have that experience. I think he had to just see me and hear me out. I wonder what year he said that, because his son told he told me ins and outs of riding big waves and said, go after it. I think he was just probably generalizing. When you meet an exception, and I was considered an exception, and I don't think I was. I think that just women weren't seeing themselves this way. Obviously your book speaks to it. Just with pictures, look at this. so we were kind of like on our own, we were just trailblazing without knowing that was it, and wondering if were we going to get laughed out, chased out, but no one was going to chase me away. That was, it was too good, Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, thank you for the beautiful compliments on my book. One of the reasons I wanted to put it together was because I understand, as a young surfer, I was so hungry to know more, to connect with the surfing history that looked something like me, that reflected the way that I felt about this magical world of being, amongst the beautiful sparkling sea. And I wanted to see my foremothers and how they felt about surfing. And I'd love for you to say something about both how empowering it is to connect the dots, to reweave the web of women's surf history, but also about the disservice representations can do when we don't see ourselves represented. And that's still happening in surf media. And one of the reasons why I wanted to write this book is because there still isn't a centralized source for young women and young men to understand that women like yourself have been not only asking these questions, but pioneering big waves and having these experiences that can be so deeply valuable for all of us. But when we're severed from our past, we feel like we're alone in reinventing the wheel of what all of this means for ourselves.
Yeah, I totally get it. I get where you're coming from, I believe. So to speak to that, it's interesting. I think what you're doing, the work that you're doing, we have a name for it. I went to, graduated a few years ago from Harvard Divinity School, and sampled some of the other graduate schools while I was here. And, the thinking is the storytelling is number one. You let the people tell their story and don't put words in their mouth. The word for it is ethnographic. Okay. It's an ethnographic telling. In other words, the narrative is spoken by the people themselves. Then you have an autoethnographic, and that is, let's say, someone like me who would write a narrative themselves. It wouldn't be something like I told to you and then you wrote about it, or you wrote about several of us. So I would say your book is an ethnographic presentation of women surfing. It's far more authentic. It really represents, our truth as it is. And it is not kowtowing to the colonization of patriarchy onto, I don't want to sound so damn academic, right? It's not about that. So, we've got these canned narratives that, you have to ask, where did it come from? Certainly didn't come from our mothers. I think it came from a fantasy life, a very rich one. What does this guy want to, what is he always hoping a surf babe would do if he saw him, Oh my God. So you have to say, okay, and set it aside and go with what you've got. And one woman surfer in your book who's featured, and she surfed for Roxy. And she doesn't know this. It's Cassia. I was doing programs for Roxy. I mean, I managed the surf days. They would go up and down the coast, and some of their team riders would come with us, but I had everything ready for all the kids that would participate, and all the instructors ready. They would just show up and say hi, And the management at Roxy came up to me once, and they were concerned about Cassia, and they didn't know if she really fit, if she can be still part of their team. And I said, I think she's what you need. I said, you better keep her, because she's authentic. She's absolutely being herself. And I had to tell them that like twice. Don't let go of her. And so I got to see it from the back room, so to speak, that there was this unfortunate, this girl's not towing the line, the script. She's not performing the narrative, the commercial marketing narrative that we need. She wasn't. And let me tell you, who wanted more autographs? The girls wanted more autographs from Cassia than the rest of them, because they felt her. That's all they needed. So I hope that speaks to what you're saying. So, we kind of had to look out for each other in a way like this. I didn't start a fire with that. I just took care of it behind the scenes, and learned something about it. Like, okay. Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to jump into another topic that has been deeply inspiring for me from your rich life of contribution to the surfing world. And that's in 1974, you became the first woman to write an article for Surfer magazine. It was called Equal Time, and there was a subtitle, which I'm guessing you did not write, and that was "The girls feel it's about time that they were given some attention, not as sex objects, but as surf people."
You're right. Not right, that. I was upset that they called us girls, because at the time, context is everything. Again, we were tired of being called girls. We wanted to be called women. All right. We felt it was very degrading to call us girls. Now it's not that way, but then it was. And the equal time was taken out of context. In the article, I said equal time. I said the positive side of surfing and the negative side of surfing needed equal time. That's the context of the phrase equal time. So, yeah, it was, again, I was campaigning. It was Steve Pesman. I reached out to him and I said, we got to have an article. We want to do this. This is what we're doing. He goes, all right, send me something. I sent him something and it was too nice. He goes, no, this is not the Mary I know. You write it again, do something. So I did. I wrote what I wrote. And I felt it was more my voice. And he also told me that he had no pictures. And I said, well, I'll take care of it. Give me a name of a photographer. And he did, Bernie Baker. So I called him up and I said, I'm going to hire you, and you can't take any other pictures except I want to see the roll, and it's just us.
Just women.
He agreed. Just women. So the first time it was just me at Haleiwa, and that's where those pictures came from. And then we were, that one wave of Lynn Boyer, he says it in Makaha. No, it was in town. I can tell you where we were. I knew where we were. And I think we were at Canoes. And then there was one, I think, at Chun's. So we had several times, and he sent the pictures in. I owned them. I paid for the development. I paid for the development. And then he sent them to Surfer as though he owned them. And he got paid by Surfer. And yeah, that was kind of lowball. But that was just how it was. I asked Steve about it like a decade, 20 years later. I said, this happened. What do you think about that? He goes, Mary, in that day, I never would have paid a broad for pictures, ever. He was a straight up guy. And then he wrote the editorial after my article, which is, talk about stepping in it. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd love to read. I have a couple quotes here from Steve from what he wrote. He wrote, from an editor's standpoint, we haven't run many surf photos of girls. Girls are really giving us some heat about it, he says. They want to be represented, and I don't blame them. But we don't want to run photos of girls unless they deserve to be run in relation to all of the shots we have to choose from. More often than not, they don't get picked. The gals say that's because the photographers won't shoot them, and that's why we don't get them. That's possibly true. But it costs $7 to buy and process a roll of film. If you get 1 or 2 good shots from a roll, it's good. 3 is hot. Photographers usually work with the same group of surfers. They have favorites they like to shoot because they get the subject matter they're looking for, and they get to know their surfing, which helps them anticipate action. Even the top girls photograph like average, competent guys. It took over a year of putting the word out to get these photos that are included in your article. When we get good shots of girls, we'll be using them. It's actually up to the girls to force the photographers to pay attention to them by consistently blowing minds. Not hot for a girl, just plain hot. And I can say that that's pretty much been the predominant attitude of surf media since that was written.
Yeah. But, I didn't give Bernie Baker a way out. I just said, this is, you only shoot us. And I want to see the film. So, it's just like that was how it worked. I mean, that's the kind of, and I was only 19 at the time. I wish I had had someone like you, you would have been older than me. And I wish I could have talked to someone like you, like, gee, this is what he did, and what do I do? But we didn't have elders. So we just kind of came undone.
You've alluded several times, Mary, to the power of prayer in your life. Can you speak to the spiritual or religious philosophies that have guided you and eventually led you to Harvard Divinity School?
Yeah. I went to Harvard Divinity School, and by way of Union Theological Seminary. I went there first, but I went not to find God. I felt I already had a relationship with God. I wanted to interrogate the religious systems, their influence or lack of influence in society, the whole arc. I wanted to explore the myths that so many of them start because of religious teachings. So basically, I saw it as going up the river. Why are bodies coming down the river? And I learned that from this one guy. So that's why I went. Harvard accepted me. One of the reasons is because they wanted inclusion. They wanted diversity. They didn't feel they were getting people with creative ministries, and certainly mine was on the margins. And they wanted to help equip me. And part of that equipping was knowing the history. We're tracing out some of the great thinkers. What was made available to me there, which I'm so grateful for, and that's one of the reasons I'm still here, is phenomenal support for research, which I still want to continue. But what I found out was very much like what you're doing, the storytelling and how important that is. And that one of the reasons why religion remains alive and well is because of talented storytelling. In families, people speak of their religious experiences. They speak of prayer. You hear your mother talk about, I prayed for this. That's a story. We don't think of it. And also the tracing out the ritual. You have high ritual and you have low ritual. Low ritual would be, the things that happen on the street, basically tribal behavior in a parking lot. Surfers show up and they always park over here and they do this and they do that. That's ritual, believe it or not, before they go out in the water. That's low ritual. High ritual has all the trappings, the trumpets, the dressings. And it's all to convey a pattern of behavior and to basically shape society. Ritual shapes society, whether you think it does or it does. It's one of this pandemic. We don't get to do our rituals, whether it's a funeral or something. We're just like, oh my God, people are realizing how deprived they are because they don't have their rituals. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to understand the power plays within rituals, the patriarchal influences through them, just all of that, the gender stories. And I wanted to know, how could we nudge them toward more equity? I was able to develop some outreach that I had to learn how to approach people about faith issues without saying the word God, speaking more about spirit, speaking more about this energy that you feel, this wonderful peace, this line of peace that you might feel come through you. You know, to have anything, have you noticed anything? And people would wake up, yeah, and they would have a name for it. Or, you know, it's really sad that we force it into a certain framework and say it must be here or else it doesn't exist. And that's not true. That's not true. That's why surfing, oh my gosh, this is probably one of my biggest things. Was before I left, you know, I had been, I'm so sorry for people listening to this, but I've been molested by a priest, okay, at 12. And that affected my faith life, like all get out. And that was one of the healing things of surfing, because I could just be with this great teacher. And now here it is, it's 2004. And the cardinal in Los Angeles wants to meet me and apologize. I was helping the archdiocese. And I stood at the waterline a couple weeks before, knowing I was going to meet him. And I prayed. I thought, God, I love to look out at the sea and pray. And I'd say, what should I give him? Maybe candles with sand and shells. And I heard, give him your trophy. That was my US trophy, which is like a piece of art. I thought, oh, no. No way. He won't understand. It'll just be put in a cardboard box and shoved away. So I had other ideas. The next day I came down again. What should I give the cardinal? I wonder what I should get. And it was again, give him your trophy. It's like, no, I mean, I'll buy this and buy that. Third time, I'm down by the water and I'm standing in the water. I thought, wonder what I should give the cardinal. And I heard the trophy. And then I felt something from the sea start to pull away from me. Like, I thought, oh my God, I can't lose you. All right, fine. I'm going to give him my trophy. I don't know why. I'll give him my trophy. And then as soon as I agreed to that in my heart, as soon as I agreed to it, I heard a response. This is huge. You thought you ran from me, but you ran to me. And in that moment, I understood the meaning of my trophy. It had sat on a shelf all those years, and I never understood. It spoke of the improbable journey and survival of my life, and how God and the Spirit was always there, never leaving my side, ever. And that's what it represented. It was a symbol of that. And then I thought, well, how do I give it to him? What do I say? And I heard the enduring faithfulness of God. So when I met him and I told him what had happened, and he goes, well, and he asked us, he goes, what should I think when I look at it? See? And I said, the enduring faithfulness of God. And it's weird, the Archdiocese, they wrote a story about it. They said the enduring faithfulness of God. I mean, God loves our roughness. That's what I know about, at least my God. Doesn't look for holiness, loves the rough and tumble people, you know, real people. And, you know, the ruffians, that as long as you're sincere, you know, you got it. So, yeah, that's my prayer life, is not a lot of words. Just like, I mean, I do get up in the middle of the night, like 4, and I'll be up here by my window and I'll be praying for people. You know, I did live in a monastery for over a year, and it was only supposed to be 3 months. And the brothers, it was all men, the brothers, and it was this quiet, silent retreat. You didn't talk, except in the kitchen. We talked to each other in the kitchen. But when the 3 months was up, they'd sit down with me and they go, could you stay another 3 months? I was just like, really? Are you serious? You want me more? And it was like, yes. So I stayed. And it's probably because I needed it. And plus I wasn't a groupie. You know, a lot of people with these spiritual people, they're groupies. They're like, oh my God, it's brother so-and-so. And he said this to me, and they're just weird. It's like not like that.
Do you still see yourself as a ruffian, like that rough, real person that wasn't a groupie there and still isn't a groupie then? Yeah,
I do. And I'm sorry. I mean, I swore in this thing. I don't know how else I could have told the story without swearing. You just can't. And honestly, I just feel the Spirit smiling with all that. Like, yeah, that's what I know.
Can you talk to us a little bit about the surf bus and how you came back to surfing with such a spirit of generosity and encouragement, and have contributed to this culture or this sport that really didn't treat you with so much respect in your younger years?
You're really touching on something that has another mystical dimension to it. Did I think that I was coming back and I had a plan of surf bus? Not at all. It was actually revealed to me. Trauma actually brought it together in a way that this little girl drowned, Teresa. She's 12 years old, and she drowned while I was teaching kids on one side of the pier. She drowned on the other, and she's the same age as the kids I was teaching. She's also the same age when I got into so much trouble, 12. And this girl, she came from South Central LA, Watts. That's a very tough part of town. Ditched school to get to the beach. And like, who hasn't done that? She paid for her life for something that we should have done. We should have had programs for kids to learn ocean safety. And because we were stingy, only wanted something for locals or kids of a certain ability, we left all these scores of kids at risk, and that's exactly why they would drown year after year after year.
Mostly black and brown kids.
Yes, black kids of color.
Kids. Yeah.
Yeah, in a way, sending a message. You see what happens when you come to the beach? You die. So you better stay away. You see? It's policing. It's a very covert way of policing. And I identified with this girl in a way that I was insufferable. I pretty much kept it to myself and did research and found out the facts I found out, which burned me up even more. And I went, I've got to have the money to do this. So my surf school helped me bankroll some of it. I started with one-day specials and in 2002. And these kids, she drowned in 1999. And so in 2002, I had my first bus, but it was only for one day, not for several days during the summer. And some social workers came up to me, this one group of at-risk kids that they had probation officers, these kids were in real trouble. But I found them to be fantastic, really excited. And especially this one girl, Tanisha. I knew she was a handful. She was like a ringleader. And I knew if I got her, all of her friends would fall in line. But she was like the alpha. So I got her on the board first. I got her up on a wave, and that girl, skinny little thing, she ran right off the board like it was a track. I mean, she just bounded off the board right up the beach and turned around and was like, oh, and her friends were just howling. They wouldn't even come in the water yet. They just had to see what happened to her. I said, come on, you're not done. Come on. It's 5 waves. Come on. She's like, oh, you're telling me? I said, yeah. So we get back out. catches another wave. Finally, I said, stay on the board. She finally stays on the board. She's now her friends are running out and glomming on the board and giving her a body board to play. Yeah, I got it's all going now. You know what I mean? But that's how we do it. That's how we did it. So I'm putting boards back in the truck, and the social worker stops me. A couple of them did. He said, we want to tell you about a breakthrough we had. And I'm like, well, great. Can I work while you talk to me? They go, no. And they said, you know, that girl you helped, Tanisha. I said, well, yeah, she was great. They said, no, today, we've worked with her for years. Today was the first time we've ever heard her laugh. We've never seen her smile. This was just a miracle today. And even now, I'm just like getting chills. I thought, wait, this can't be the only time, because it was like, again, it was one day. And I was like, oh my God, but where is she? They go, oh no, they're gone. And I was like, oh my God. And I felt guilty. I didn't have, you'd think I'd be celebrating. I'm thinking, no, she needed more of this. So now I'm really praying hard, and I'm banging on the door of Russ Lesser, the former governor of Manhattan Beach and the president of Body Glove. I'm going, you have got to help me. I'm insufferable. Just like I was with the woman surfing, I'm insufferable. And now I'm out in the water minding my own business. It's a beautiful winter day. This is the mystical side of it. I don't know how everything's going to come together. I don't know if it ever will. But I'm out in the water paddling. It's a beautiful, beautiful, crisp fall day. And I'm looking at these mountains, and I hear music. And I'm like, who the hell's got a boombox at this hour? And I'm looking at the beach, and I don't see anybody with the boombox. I don't see anybody. And I'm like, what the hell? And I still hear this music. And I'm like, well, I don't understand this. And I'm just paddling, going, where's the music? Is it a boat? And then I hear this beautiful voice, and it's got this rhythm, and I'm listening, and it starts to come clear and clear. And I finally hear it says, where are the children? Bring me the children. And it was singing, where are the children? Bring me the children. I can't sing, but it did it in different notes. And I could feel the sea lonely for children, like looking for them. Why aren't they playing with me today? Where are the children? Why? And oh my gosh, I was done. I was like, okay. I'm so sorry, Lauren. You're probably thinking, man, we have taped a loony. I then started to have these clear sense of instructions. Like I was supposed to go to MacArthur Park, which the police chief tagged MacArthur Park as one of the top 3 most dangerous parks in LA. And I had this notion to go to MacArthur Park, cold call, and say, you want to come to the beach? And I did that. I drove my van there, parked, walked around that park. And I found a kid named, counselor named Luke, and this little boy named Pedro. I swear to God, his name was Pedro. I go, in a stairwell, I said, you want to go to the beach? You want to learn how to surf? That's all I said. And the kid goes, me? I go, yeah, you. And Luke goes, that'd be so much fun. I go, yeah, well, we're going to make it happen. I got the name of the director and showed up for that. We ended up having a beach day at MacArthur Park, set up tents, boards on these rocker things I set up, wetsuits with water balloon fights. We got all these kids into the equipment. Russ Lesser finally said, okay, and bankrolled a bus. And then he talked to a county supervisor who bankrolled buses all summer. He goes, you just better fill them. I said, no problem. I cold called. I walked to all these parks with flyers. I walked to summer camps. I mean, I canvassed and filled those damn buses. And I got these kids to the beach. Then the word got out between 2 parks about how these kids were so damn stoked and that they weren't fighting. Like Echo Park and MacArthur Park, the kids weren't fighting, and they have rivalries, it'd be like USC and UCLA, no fights. Because why? Why would you want to fight at the beach? And you got to worry about sharks. So that's what I would tell him. And then all of a sudden, I mean, it just blew up. It absolutely blew up. And the following year, I incorporated, and Kelly Slater gave me some money. He was just so generous. The surf industry did come through partially. They kind of bottomed out on me when the recession hit, 2008. That was bad. Not one dime came through. And I was left holding the bag, and that pretty much sunk my ship. But hey, I got kids to the beach, and who knows what life I saved, so don't worry about it. But you see how it shifted from, I was all gung-ho for women. And then this girl drowned. Again, you know, there's the bridge. But I saw horrific neglect, and basically I saw culpability. You know, the surf culture was really, without precisely knowing it, they had a way of keeping it theirs. You know, these kids weren't going to learn the skills, and they were going to drown. They were going to be terrorized. That was a way of terrorizing. And so, no, that's all.
Mary, it's so admirable and so inspiring to hear this story. And it does make me think of how important it is for both you and Lauren to be sharing the stories that you are living and uncovering with fellow water people, and that it's that real magic of seeing ourselves in others, or just dissolving the other altogether, just seeing us. And you saw yourself, you felt yourself with that young girl, Teresa, drowning at the beach, that you saw that connection. And like for Lauren, she often speaks of that void of growing up and not seeing yourself in the surfing organism, just not having those opportunities to see that connectedness. And so this feels really beautiful and important, what you're sharing, because there'll be so many young women and elder surfing women and young girls who can hear this and hear and see themselves in these stories. Like all of these stories, and I know you have so many more. Are you going to write a book? Do you want to share this deeply with others? Do you feel like you're still like in the water and paddling hard and getting pounded and catching waves? Are you still deeply in life? And I think I can guess the answer to this. It seems like you are, but are you very reflective now when you think about all these things that you've learnt and sharing them?
That's a really good question. I think I'm actually starting to trust that I'm at a vista where maybe I could write something. Everything is, I just feel I've been dodging bullets, you know, my whole life, just dancing, going, oh my God, what's next, you know? And I have been very deliberate in taking time off to heal from so much. I didn't realize what a comprehensive job that was. I mean, it was very, and I don't know, just this interview is part of saying, it's to me, it's like a beckoning, come back. I mean, I had tears in my eyes looking at your book, because I knew, I mean, I felt all of us back then, and you represented us so well. And that, oh my gosh, take heart, look at it, bore fruit. It really did something. It really did. And it's not all lost. So, you know, coming back, I mean, getting back in the water, you know, to me, I'll always be a surf instructor. If I can teach someone, I'm in heaven. You know, you have to give what's been given to you.
Surfing teaches us that over and over again, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
The freeness of waves, the ultimate gift that they are.
Yeah. I don't understand this my wave, you know. I mean, that's just jonesing, dude. I mean, I did all that stuff, you know, but I now see the absurdity of it. What's happened is something in my deepest heart, I always hope would happen is that if more women came out in the water, we would shift the vibe. And I really honestly have felt that when I was out in California recently to help my daughter with my granddaughter. I was so happy to be with her. And the times that I surfed, I really honestly felt the difference in the water. First of all, I couldn't believe how many women there were. And second, it just felt a lot, it was far more mellow. I was like, where are the aggros? You know what I mean? I mean, there was always a fight when I was surfing a lot. There was always somebody duking it out on the beach. I mean, just somebody just was like, I didn't see any of it at all. And I was there for 2 months. That's long enough to see somebody try to settle a score. Mm. And wow. Mm. So the vibe has changed. I think the presence of a lot of women, I think it's done that. Maybe. And we hoped it would. It was just, at least I did.
Absolutely.
You know, so it's a beautiful thing.
It sure is. I'm really struck by your use of the word mystical several times throughout this conversation. And when I think about your story, how as a young girl you were riding 20 miles round trip to go surfing with a heavy longboard, and then later...
That was a shortboard.
Okay, with a shortboard, with probably a heavy shortboard still.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And then, as a teenager or in your early 20s, fighting for equality, having, not really quite tasted it in a cultural sense in your own way, and then as an adult woman listening to this voice of compassion and I think you would say the voice of God speaking through Teresa's experience and creating opportunities like you did with Serenity Sisters. What is that interplay between prayer and listening and connecting with the mystic that has guided you? Or would you attribute that abiding to a sense of curiosity or prayer as the connective thread throughout?
Well, what I'm going to equate it to is the beckoning. I would describe it this way. Do you feel pulled to surf? Like something in the morning, it's like, get up, go. It's good. It's firing. There's something. That to me is the spirit. My feeling to pray is actually in response to a beckoning to pray. I don't think it originates with me. So my feeling of wanting to surf didn't originate with me. It came from an invitation. Will you come? Seek me out today. Be with me today. And I feel it. And I'm like, oh yes, I'm going to come. I'm going to be with you. That is how I would describe my relationship with the sea, with surfing, and my relationship with the spirit. I heard someone a friend say, I'm so grateful, I'm grateful. And I realized that it spoke to that, seek the one who seeks you. And it eliminates the hubris. I am praying. No, I'm entering prayer. Enter prayer. It's like I'm entering the sea. You're going to get your ass kicked.
Do you think of riding waves as a kind of prayer?
Yeah, I do. Actually, when I'm out there, and this is something that Cardinal told me, it was so funny. I was out surfing a pretty big day at San Onofre, believe it or not. I know you'd think, oh, San Onofre. No, it can get pretty hefty there sometimes. I mean, that day, I mean, there were some double overhead sets coming in, and I was due to go to New York, to go back east, to go to college, to grad school. And I was going to meet with the Cardinal later in the day, but I had to go out surfing. So I'm out riding these. And so here's what's happening out there. I'm out there and I'm kind of like praying. I'm like, all right, oh man, thank you for these waves. Thank you for these. And then I feel something. It's out there. I just feel it and I can't not do it. I've got to paddle and I'm paddling kind of like crazy. I'm paddling and people are like, why it's paddling for nothing, but I'm paddling outside because something's, it's like telling me, it's like pulling me. And I'm paddling, and sure enough, here it is. It happened 3 times that day. Just a set wave, and I'm in position, perfect position. Hardly have to paddle over to get in the most perfect peak position. Drop in on this sucker, and everyone's going, oh, shit, Patrick getting killed. You know what I mean? And I'm just weaving through people, just riding all the way in. I'm just like, all right. Same thing happens. I'm just sitting there going, oh, my God. And I just got to paddle. You know what I mean? It's just something that just activates. And so I told that to the car, and I wouldn't see him. I said, oh, it was a great day. And I'm all excited. And I'm telling him, man, the waves are like this. And I would feel something and I would just start to paddle. And there it is. And nobody ever followed me. The final time someone did start to track me, and he got some action. But so the Cardinal and I were still talking. Then he stops and he stopped me and he said, I want to explain to you what that meant. I go, what? He goes, the paddling, the waves. He goes, some can feel the spirit, the movement of, that's what he said, the movement of the spirit. And you can feel it and you respond. And it can seem like, why doesn't anyone else feel this? I would say that's similar to the pull to push women surfing so aggressively, the pull to do surf bus so aggressively. And he said, others, they may not feel that, but you do. And it may be a lonely journey sometimes, but you see how necessary it was. And I'm like, oh, damn. I mean, I was just catching a wave. But he pretty much summed it up for me. And then I asked him, well, do you want to learn how to surf? And he's, no. So.
Oh, that's so fantastic.
We have a really dear friend, Albie Falzon is his name. He made the surfing film in the 70s, Morning of the Earth. And
yeah, you know what? I listened to the pod. It was fabulous.
Oh, wonderful. So I've known Albie most of my life since I was a little salty little grommet, and we've had a lot of really guiding conversations in my life. And one of them, he spoke of following spiritual festivals around the world for a period. He was making a film based on spiritual festivals of the world. So he went to the Wesak festival and the Kumbh Mela in India, these massive gatherings, and went to many beautiful monasteries and ashrams and whatnot. And he speaks of how he was at one of those and the sign on the door said, leave your shoes and your mind at the door. And when he saw that, I think he was probably somewhere near the Himalayas when he saw that, but he instantly, as most of us who are surf mad do, he thought of surfing. And he thought, this is exactly what happens when we go surfing. We go to the beach and we take off our shoes if you're wearing any, and we leave our shoes and our mind on the shore when we paddle out, and we get what all those yogis, monks, saints, priests, priestesses, all of them are aiming for when we just slip into that water and be among that space and really be there.
Yeah, Lauren Digg, you're so right. I mean, that's it. To me, you thought you ran from me, but you ran to me.
Oh, I love you. You're so wonderful.
You know,
You're so great.
I just, that's it. I mean, it's right in front of us. It's with us now. I mean, just, you know, I couldn't agree with you more. And when you're out there, you're really in it. You understand you're connecting with so much more than this. To me, the sea is alive. It's not an inanimate car. It is alive. I believe it has a voice. I heard it. Now I understand why the fishermen, they talk about hearing the sea and singing. And when you spend that much time in the sea, I don't know, it does shift things. It just does.
Thanks again for listening with us for this season of the Water People podcast. We're going to take a couple months to rest and reconnect and find some new stellar stories to share with you next season. Thanks always to our sound engineer and in-house musician, Shannon Sol Carroll. On behalf of myself, Lauren Hill, and my partner in rhyme, Dave Rastovich, thanks for making the time to listen with us. We'll be continuing the conversation on Instagram, where we're at Water People Podcast. You can find every episode and some extras on our website, waterpeoplepodcast.com.